Hey, what's up? It's Tati back with another review of Dark Side of the Ring, this time Season 4, Episode 7, Abdullah the Butcher. Now, Abdullah the Butcher was one of the most terrifying hardcore heel wrestlers of all time. He wrestled on all continents but Antarctica, and he's gone from almost every promotion there possibly ever was. However, he had much success without ever stepping foot in the WWE. Now, when Abdullah the Butcher was around, no one was safe. Now, we do have Mick Foley, and along with some of Abdullah's brothers and sisters who were part of this episode being interviewed. And Mick Foley was letting us know that he was so fascinated about Abdullah the Butcher from looking at him in magazines that on his first day of college in his dorm room, he puts a picture of Abdullah on the wall and let everyone on campus know that that's his daddy. Now, I see the resemblance, don't you? The thing I like here about this episode is that we do have a lot of people coming together to talk about Abdullah's career, but I do feel like Abdullah, even though he's shared information about his career, I think he was more focused on letting everyone know how much financial issues he currently has. So that was a big thing for him throughout this episode that he's talking about. But I really wish we got a little bit more focus into his career, because I think he wanted us to talk less about the darker side and more about what's going on currently in his life. Now, the madman from Sudan is actually from Canada, and he grew up in a poor family where it was a family of 8, and they lived in a 2-bedroom house where they all would share beds. Even one of the brothers, who claimed the bathroom to be his bedroom, he would sleep in the tub, and whenever someone had to use the bathroom, the boys would have to use the bathroom in a can, while the brother would leave the bathroom to let the ladies use the bathroom. Now, Abdullah says he didn't realize how poor his family was until one day he went to visit his mom at work. She worked at a funeral home. When he got there, he saw his mother on the floor, hands and knees, scrubbing the floor. And he did not like that, and he felt like this is not the life that he wanted his mother to have. So starting from there, he would buy candy at the candy store. He would buy 3 pieces of candy for 1 penny, and then he would sell each candy at school for 1 penny each. So he was doing this, and sometimes some kids did not have money to pay for the candy. So what he would do is let the kids have the candy, but they would have to pay him back. When he didn't get his money, he would approach the kids and ask them for their money. However, the kids were scared of him, so he didn't want any issues. He didn't want to come off like a threat to children. So he decided that the selling candy in school thing was not for him anymore, but he needed to find a way to help his family. So what he decides to do is quit school in the 2nd grade, and he goes on to find many different jobs and side hustles to make money so he can help his family financially. Now, later on, closer to his late teens, before he's even 18 years old, he has been doing karate and judo for quite some time, and he's learned enough so that he can teach senior citizens how to do karate. And one day, one of the karate masters approached him and said, "Hey, you should try wrestling." He's hesitant at first, but he decides to give it a try. He goes on to Detroit, and that's where he meets the original Sheik. Now, the original Sheik, many of you guys know as Sabu's uncle. He was known as one of the innovators of hardcore wrestling. And that, if you really look at Abdullah's character and also the Sheik's character, you can see the similarities if you look back at both of their careers. And from there, he's inspired, and he becomes one of the best known hardcore wrestlers of all time. So Abdullah's dad was not impressed with him being a pro wrestler, and what bothered him the most about it was that every night he was bleeding. Now, if you guys think Jon Moxley is doing the most with the bleeding, if you've never seen Abdullah, you have no idea. Now, he does show his dad later on how to blade, and that even though it doesn't hurt to get hit, he's the one who's cutting himself and not the wrestlers hitting him hard enough for him to bleed. Now, once his dad see this, his dad realized that his son is actually crazier than what he thought he was. So Abdullah has a lot of managers. Abdullah is, billed from Sudan, so he can't speak English. And he has so many managers, one of those being Hugo Sabanovich, who was his manager for 8 years, especially in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean territories, where he made them so much money. And he's also been in Japan, and he goes to the U.S. as well, and he draws a lot of money there too. And he's made so much money that he's able to provide for his family financially. Even one day, he went to his mother's job and literally came to pick her up and told her that I'll make sure that you'll never have to work ever again. And he made so much money providing for his family that his mother never had to lift a finger to work for anyone else. Now, even though he was making so much money, him not being educated, and he says he's not able to read or write, he had legal and financial issues. He's signing contracts and, getting himself into things that he has no idea what they really are because he cannot read what he's signing. So we do have Abdullah's caretaker who is interviewed for the episode as well. She talks about when they meet for the first time, and after they met, she then comes on to be really good friends, and she's still part of his life till today. She's there. After explaining how they met, she's talking about all the financial issues and legal issues that he's currently facing. So pretty much the same thing that Abdullah is doing as well. And if anyone has anything negative to say about Abdullah, she's letting everyone know that whatever people have to say about him is not true. And to be honest, I feel like Abdullah and her probably rehearsed what they was going to say before the cameras were on. So for Abdullah, staying in character was extremely important. He had to keep kayfabe at all times. Now, no matter who he went against in the ring, he helped people get over by being a terrifying heel in the ring. Although that was the case, in Japan, they loved him. He was in magazines, billboards, movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, and he even recorded an album in his dressing room. I don't recommend listening to it, but if you want to, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, where's the dark side of this story? Now, I'll tell you. Abdullah, although he's known for blading, he would cut himself and even cut his opponents to basically exaggerate injuries and make things look much worse when people are seeing two wrestlers in a pool of blood. Now, people were used to seeing him do, have those type of matches, but not many people knew that he was blading in order for him and his opponent to be bleeding while they are in the ring. So years later, late in his career, things took a turn for the worse where he knowingly, well, according to him, he didn't know it, but he says here that he has no idea how someone he was in a ring with ended up contracting hepatitis C from him. So let's go more into these details. So in 2001, Devin Nicholson, also known as Hannibal, started his own promotion, and Abdullah would not just work there, but was a mentor for him and would let him know the ins and out of the business. And around 2006, they end up having a feud of their own. Now, he was influenced by Abdullah. His grandmother did show him some wrestling when he was younger, so that's how he got into it. And he knew about Abdullah blading or whatnot, but obviously not knowing that he had a viral disease, something like hepatitis C, where it's something that could be passed on through blood contact, and he has no idea about this. Now, Tony Atlas talks about Abdullah, and he compares Abdullah to Ric Flair and his robe. So where you always see Rick with his robe, there's Abdullah with his blades. And then he also would tape up blades on all of his fingers so he can use during the match. And actually, I think that's insane. Now, he does show exactly how he would blade, for himself and for others as well. And this is part of the reason why Vince McMahon never signed him, because he's an absolute liability. He would have caused so much issues for the WWF during that time, because not only is he hurting himself, the thing is that there's blading done in a WWE as well. However, Abdullah would take things to a much grander scale. We did also have Mick Foley, who was in the WWE, but he was much more of a watered down hardcore wrestler by that time. So things have changed. And same thing goes for Jon Moxley as well. He was also doing hardcore wrestling before WWE. Most people remember him by what he did as Dean Ambrose in WWE. And once he has left, he's finally going back to his hardcore roots. So this is why you see him blading and bleeding a lot more often in AEW. Now, the issue with Abdullah with this case here is that he ends up having a match with Hannibal. And while he have this match, he blades Hannibal in the head at first, and then later on he cuts himself with the same blade. Now, Hannibal says he didn't know that this was what happened. During this time of that match, he was recording a documentary about himself and his journey to becoming a WWE superstar. He ends up getting hired by the WWE, and after a few blood tests, they realize that he has hepatitis C and that they cannot have him working with a condition like that. So hepatitis C is when your blood is infected, and what happens is that this type of infection can damage your liver, and for some people it could be fatal depending on how much it damage your liver. So this is something that WWE did not want to take on, so they ended up letting him go. Now, they do continue to do this documentary, and it goes from them celebrating him going to WWE to him losing that contract. And while they're reviewing the film for this documentary, that's when they actually see the footage of that match that Hannibal had with Abdullah, and realize that he was using the same blade on the both of them. So they end up releasing this documentary. And during the documentary, he actually claims that he got it from Abdullah. Abdullah is telling people no. Now the news is catching on to the story, and a lawyer decides to take on this case, and he takes it to a judge, and they have him do a blood test, and the blood test does come back positive, and that he does have hepatitis C, and he has had a history of having hepatitis C. So what that means is that he must have known for quite some time that he's had hepatitis C. Now, according to Abdullah, the courts had been sending him subpoenas and letters for him to go to court, and the case ended up ending in default because he never showed up. And he claims it's because he don't know how to read. He's getting all these letters. He don't know what it says. He asks his caretaker to take a look to tell him what does it says, and she ends up telling him that this has to do with a court case about him knowingly having hepatitis C and passing it on to another wrestler. He denies that he ever knew about it. Matter of fact, he refused to talk about it on this episode. What he wants everyone to know is that he has financial issues and he needs help. Even though Abdullah did not want to talk about the case, he does state that it is possible that he got hepatitis C from Hannibal, since they did use the same blade. Now, the court did the blood test on Abdullah, and it shows that they both shared a very rare form of hepatitis C. So there's definitely a correlation to Hannibal possibly getting that from Abdullah. Either way, it ended up that Abdullah would have to pay Hannibal $2.3 million since he was sued. Now, Tony Atlas says that there's no reason why Hannibal should have sued Abdullah, because, he's in the wrestling business and he knows that Abdullah blades. And if he did not want to get any type of diseases from anyone, then he should not have been in the match knowing that Abdullah would be bleeding. So pretty much blaming Hannibal for contracting hepatitis C. And really, I kind of think he was wrong. Now, the episode I really did enjoy. I think it was great. However, I do think that Abdullah and his caretaker was really pushing the fact that he's having financial issues. And also, they really put an emphasis on the fact that Abdullah cannot read or write. Now, everyone on the episode, other than his family members and his caretakers, they all said they've seen Abdullah read, they've seen Abdullah write, especially since he signs his own autographs, and they've never seen him struggle when it comes to reading. And honestly, it's possible that he knows how to read to a certain extent, but I don't think he's completely illiterate. I enjoyed this episode, but I do think that the only thing that ruined it for me was that it just seemed like Abdullah and the caretaker had their agenda here, letting people know what his current issues are and kind of keeping away from the whole hepatitis story or whatnot. That's my only complaint there. Either way, it's a great episode. I knew Abdullah would be lying about something or just kind of keeping away from telling the truth. That part was a given. I really enjoyed this. So take a look at this episode if you didn't see it. We do have, 3 more episodes left before the season is over. Great episode. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. Thanks for watching my review. I will be back next week with the new episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Thanks for watching. Bye.